Welcome to the Kory's Rides podcast. Today is actually part one of a two-part episode. We're going to go over motorcycle speed records. We'll go over street legal production motorcycle speed records, and we'll also go over outright land speed records of anything with two wheels. So this is part one. We're going to start with the production motorcycles. So let's roll the intro and get into it. In part two, I'll go into more detail on land speed racing locations and timing associations, but with production bikes, it's not really as relevant as it is with outright land speed records. This episode's only going to concentrate on street legal motorcycles. No special track editions like the Kawasaki H2R or bikes with claimed but not proven top speeds like the claimed 270 miles per hour of the MTT turbine bike we learned about in a previous episode. We'll start with the earliest motorcycles setting records just above human running speed and move all the way through to today's insane triple-digit records. Later on, we'll talk about the gentleman's agreement, but there's a lot of history that comes before that, so let's start the timeline. Before I start, I will say that I'm only going to list speeds in miles per hour. It kills momentum when I have to say both miles per hour and then kilometers per hour after it, so if you're a metric person, just multiply everything by 1.609344. Should be easy, quick mental math, right? So we'll start way back in 1901. We get the first thing you would recognize as a motorcycle. Engine in the middle, rear-wheel drive. Previous motorcycle records had bikes with engines in front of the handlebars or in the wheel, so I'm not counting those. 1901, Werner, the new Werner motorcycle. It was a 3 horsepower single, and it set the record at 30 miles per hour, which was approaching the top speed of most horses. You could still beat it on a horse. In 1911, the FN4, an inline 4-cylinder with a 30 cubic inch displacement, did 40 miles per hour. I haven't ever been around racehorses in my life, but 40 miles an hour is probably the fastest I've ever seen a horse run. A year later, 1912, the Scott 2-speed went 50 miles per hour. 1913, another 5 miles per hour. The Williamson Flat Twin went 55 miles per hour, leaving just about any horse I know of behind, and approaching the top speed of the trains of that day. A Ford in 1913 could only go 45. Now that was a production Ford. Ford did have some land speed racing vehicles that were going a lot faster than that, but a production Ford would only do 45. In the Old West, late 1800s, 1890s, and into the early teens, people were legitimately concerned with how much speed a human body could stand. Horses were the fastest thing there was for a very long time, and if you wanted to go faster than that, you had to jump off something really tall. A bigger jump for 1914, in speed that is, not off of something tall, but 70 miles per hour with the Pope Model L, a 999cc V-twin. 1916, we had 85 miles per hour on the Cyclone V-twin. This bike held the record for some time while it was not in production as well. The Cyclone was produced until 1917, and the next fastest bike that was in production from 1918 to 1931 was the Excelsior V-twin. That could only reach 80 miles an hour. Made famous by Lawrence of Arabia, the Brough Superior SS100 claimed the first 3-digit speed record of 100 miles per hour in 1925. The model that followed up after that, the SS100 Pendine, went 110 miles per hour in 1927 and held the record for 22 years. The SS100 Alpine Grand Sports, the Crocker V-twin, and the Vincent Series A Rapide all claimed 110 mile per hour top speed, but they were not the first to reach that speed. Vincent couldn't get it done with the Rapide, but they did claim the crown with the Black Lightning. In 1949, the Black Lightning reached 150 miles per hour and put Vincent at the top of the production motorcycle speed list for an incredible 35 years. It took decades of progress, but Honda finally tied the Black Lightning, just tied it, in 1984. So from 1949 to 1984, the Vincent Black Lightning held the speed record. Honda's VF 1000R reached 150 miles an hour in 1984. And then later on that same year, Kawasaki set another record of 158 miles per hour with the GPZ 900R Ninja. Now that GPZ is probably something you know if you've seen Top Gun, but that was a 1985 model. If you saw the newer Top Gun movie, Tom Cruise actually rode a Kawasaki H2. That's a few decades away from where we're at right now. These early 1980s super sport motorcycles began a horsepower and speed war. Seeing how fast their competition was going, Suzuki answered with the GSX-R 1100 in 1986 with a top speed of 160 miles per hour. Honda reached 164 miles per hour on the CBR 1000F, but then Kawasaki took the lead back with the 165 mile per hour ZX-10. Yamaha made their first appearance at the top of the speed list with their FZR 1000 at 167 miles per hour. Now, this is approaching the highest speed I've ever gone on a public road, and I can tell you those speeds on any public road are absolutely insane. What happens at this kind of speed is your vision starts to narrow into a tunnel. Everything is happening so fast, it's hard to concentrate. It's a different level of consciousness. It is absolutely crazy. Anyway, Japan's hold on fast bikes was interrupted with the Italian Bimoda YB6, which reached 170 miles per hour. Kawasaki surged ahead momentarily with the ZX-11 at 176 miles per hour before Honda's CBR 1100 XX Super Blackbird reached 180 miles per hour. And then along came the Hayabusa, as fast as its namesake, the Peregrine Falcon. First generation Suzuki Hayabusa would reach speeds of up to 194 miles per hour. It was the tipping point. The speeds were getting insane. Lawmakers were considering bans on importing the bikes, and people were getting in horrific accidents. No manufacturer wanted to lose this speed and power competition, but they had to do something. Now, there's a lot of hearsay and misty fog around the exact details, but most major motorcycle manufacturers came to a sort of unwritten agreement to limit motorcycles to 300 kilometers per hour, which is 186 miles per hour. Nobody had to lose face. Nobody had to admit defeat. They could all just sell crazy fast bikes, but the race to 200 miles per hour was off. They didn't have to worry about regulators shutting them down or negative publicity, and they could all just keep selling these bikes. To this day, some manufacturers will not speak on record about the details of that agreement. And this lasted for a while, but in true Italian fashion, MV Agusta claimed 193 miles per hour for their 2007 model year F4R 312. They claimed that they had never agreed to any speed limitations and felt it was a national imperative to make their bikes beautiful and fast. The claimed top speed was never actually confirmed by motorcycle media of the time, though. BMW, who was kind of reported to have brought up this whole gentleman's agreement in the first place, they also soon broke this unofficial speed restriction. Their 2010 model S1000RR reached 188 miles per hour, 2 miles an hour faster than this so-called agreement. The second version of the bike, which came out in 2019, is capable of 193 miles per hour, which has been proven, unlike the MV Agusta. 2013 brought about the Ducati 1199 Panigale R, which actually blanked out the speedometer reading after you hit 186 miles per hour and kept going to a top speed of 202 miles per hour. If you want to get picky, you could say this doesn't count because it could only do that with a track-only use OEM-supplied exhaust. So it was not road legal with that exhaust. It was road legal without it, so a bit of a gray area there. Kawasaki has the H2 and H2R, along with various other trim levels built around the same engine and basic infrastructure, but the R version is a track-only bike. Capable of 250 miles an hour, but again, not a road-legal bike. That speed was also a dashboard reading, and it was not independently verified with timing equipment. The H2, which is road legal, has a top speed of only 183. I say only like that's slow or something, but I mean, relative to other bikes we have talked about, it's at the top of the pile, but it is still limited. So that's the timeline for production motorcycles. No modifications, just uncrate the bike, put gas in it, and go. These bikes were capable of the speeds I talked about. All sorts of legal restrictions on how the bikes can be made and the equipment they have to be on the road. Manufacturing budgets to maintain for building them, all of that stuff limited what these bikes were capable of. So at this point, I usually wrap up the episode, but this is a two-parter. So in the next part, we're going to learn about outright or overall land speed records for two-wheeled vehicles. The governing bodies for this sort of timing stuff and speed records, they actually include three-wheelers because the governing body for four-wheeled vehicles doesn't count them. So FIM included three-wheelers, but I'm going to weed those out. There's no rules or laws for these outright speed records other than the laws of physics. So make sure you're subscribed so you get to hear part 2. I'll see you then. Don't forget to do all the things to make the YouTube algorithm happy, like, subscribe, like the video. If you're a really wonderful person, consider supporting the channel. Thanks for watching.